I'm Kristy Aasheim, a top producing agent in North Dakota, and this show is all about learning from the best. Top producers, brokerage owners, and industry experts who have faced the challenges, put in the work, and climbed to greatness. Whether you're looking to sharpen your skills, gain new strategies, or even get inspired by the journeys of top agents, you're in the right place. Let's get started. This is Kristy Aasheim with the Inner Circle podcast. Today we have Miss Andrea Gordon with us. She has been a real estate agent for 27 years with Compass Real Estate in the Bay Area of California. Welcome, Andrea. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Wonderful. I'm so excited. I want to hear a little bit about you inside real estate and outside. Who is Andrea?
Let's see here. So I'm a kind of a complicated person in many ways, but I've been a real estate agent, as you said, for 27 years. I'm 68 years old. I got into real estate when I was 40. The reason why was because I'd been a theater director prior to that, and I taught at many different universities. I ran nonprofit theater companies and directed plays all over the country. I actually am also a playwright. My plays have been produced nationally. And with that and $2.50, I could buy myself a cup of coffee. So I had gotten sick and tired of sleeping on board members' couches and never having enough money myself, having to support an apartment in San Francisco at the same time as I was also supporting myself in varying ways across the country when I'd be directing in Chicago or whatever. And I just went, I want a home. I want a home base like other people have. I want to have a life. I want to have the possibility of actually having a relationship with somebody, because when you're traveling that much, you make a lot of friends, but you don't have serious, long-lasting relationships. You get close to people very quickly, but you also leave. So I just wanted to take a little moment to think about who I was and what I wanted, and I realized I wanted money. And I wanted to be able to have a life like other people. So that's how I got into real estate. How I got into real estate was unusual. I had done a play that was called Liverpool Fantasy, and it was a play about the Beatles. It was at the Climate Theater in San Francisco. And the premise of the play was, it was like a very fractured It's a Wonderful Life, or some of these other sorts of things where, like sliding doors. If something else had happened, something else would have happened. So in this case, the Beatles picked the wrong hit single. They never become famous. John is living on the dole. His son Julian is the leader of a neo-fascist organization. Paul has become a lounge singer named Paul Montana. Ringo is married to a hairdresser. George is an escaped crazy monk. And they all meet up at John's apartment in Liverpool when Paul is coming through on a bus and truck tour, and pandemonium ensues. The play was written by a wonderful writer named Larry Kirwan, who's now famous for writing children's stories, but at the time he was the leader of a punk band called Black 47, Irish punk band. And he was friends with Paul McCartney. And our opening night of the play, we got a telegram from Paul McCartney, which I still have a copy of. And yet the reviewers in my town basically said, you can't write a play like this about the Beatles, because it explored the homoerotic content of how everybody thought Paul and John were having an affair. All kinds of weird stuff like that came up in the play, and it was fun. And we got good reviews, but the major press gave it bad reviews. In fact, one of the critics took all Beatles song titles and use them to absolutely excoriate the production. So our audiences, which had been full, started to dwindle down to almost nothing. And I was an what's called an equity production, where the actors are union, and they were all being paid a lot of money a week. And I was an idiot and kept running it. I didn't close it. I just was angry and upset, and because it was beautiful. It was a wonderful show. And people really loved it when they had a chance to watch it. And so it lost a ton of money. And at that point, I had to figure out how to get the money back, because I had gotten money from my sister. I had gotten money from family. I had to do it. It was a very expensive production. So I found myself suddenly over $60,000 in a hole, which was a lot of money 27 years ago. It was probably worth about $200,000 now, I'm going to guess. So I decided I had to get a job. And so I went and I looked in the paper and I borrowed a suit from my sister, and I somehow ended up with a job at an advertising agency with my own office and secretary selling advertising, which I knew nothing about. But I am a theater person, so I was able to pretend that I knew something about it and got
Yeah.
the job. And I became their top salesperson in the space of a year, paid off every dime I owed everyone and paid it all back. And I hated it. I hated the job. And so I ended up quitting. And I went into my boss's office to say, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to leave. And he said, I had a feeling you were going to do that. And I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, no, I know your whole situation, and it's fine. You're the best salesperson I've ever met in my entire life. And I thanked him, and I thought, what else can I sell? So I went out and I got a job selling wine. And the problem with selling wine in San Francisco is that there are a lot of hills. So I was carrying like 24 bottles of wine, parking far away from the hotels that I was going to, and carrying. My arms were so buff by the end of that year. But, and I was really good at it. I sold wine to hotels all over the country and did incredibly well. And then I thought to myself, this is awful. You have to carry all those bottles of wine. You don't even like wine. I don't drink, by the way. So it was a very weird thing for me to be selling.
Yes.
But I'm very good at metaphors and things like that. And when you're selling wine, what you're selling is a dream. You're selling the peach passion or the this, that, or it's really not wine. It's what you hope somebody will feel they will feel when they're drinking the wine, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I like wine. So
Yeah.
you can tell me I could drink all day long.
I'm sure you've seen people sipping wine and tasting it and saying, "Oh, I sense a little bit of grass, or I sense a little bit of this or that, the other thing." I could make that stuff up all day. Um, so at that point, I quit that job after being their top salesperson and thought, what else could I sell? And it was between high-end cars and real estate. And I went to a lot of car dealerships. And what I noticed was that the women were all the receptionist, the service rep, but there were very few women on the sales floor. And when I went to a real estate office, everybody was female. There were very few men there. And I thought, oh, okay. If I go to a car dealership, it's going to be tough because I'm going to be up against the old boys who've been doing this forever and ever. And if I go to real estate, I'll probably do well because it's a female environment and people expect you to be a female when you're selling real estate. So that's how I decided on real estate. And my first month in the business, I made 6 sales.
Wow.
I had the greatest broker in the history of brokers, a guy named Muhammad Ahmed. And he was from Palestine. He'd come here with the shirt on his back, and he had made a brokerage in Daly City, California. And I decided to go to a brokerage in a place where the properties were probably not terribly high end, because I thought as I'm learning how to do this, I would like to have as much opportunity as possible. And also somebody who's selling $100,000 house, because that's what they cost back then, is less likely to want somebody who has been in the business for a very long time than somebody who's selling a $3 million house. That's a mistake that young agents always make. They think they're going to sell the $3 million house right away. And no, you don't sell the $3 million house right away. You sell the $100,000 house, and then you sell the $150,000 house, then you sell the $200,000 house, then you get to the $500,000 house, and it keeps going as your career goes. By the time you get to the multi-million dollar houses, people have been in the business a while. Even if they're younger, they've been in the business a while, because nobody in their right mind is going to trust a baby agent with their most prized financial asset. It just isn't going to happen.
You
And
have
also,
that experience. Absolutely.
and also by the time you get to that level of house, the people are extremely sophisticated. This is not their first rodeo. They have sold or bought other properties. So they need somebody as sophisticated as they are at that point in their lives. So big advice to your viewership is don't start out thinking you're going to sell the big multi-million dollar houses. If you do, it will be a fluke. It will happen once and it won't happen again for a while. Go out, go get regular people, go get people that are like you. Go get people that are first-time home buyers, first-time home sellers. Those are all your people when you're first in the business.
Oh yeah, I was excited for my first phone call. I still remember that first house I sold because I just resold it. Oh, I guess it was 2 years ago now. He
Yeah,
called.
yeah.
My first ever client called again, sold it again. I think we bought it for 98,000 and then resold it again 2 years ago for 169. So I
There
mean,
you
it did great value. But yeah, I mean, you have to start from the bottom up and give yourself
Yeah,
and be like, it's okay.
yeah.
This is where I want to be, but it takes time to get there and find your circle of people that you're going to get your referrals from and everything of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the title of your podcast because you're talking about the inner circle, and that's really important. Cultivating your sphere is really good as an agent. I did not sell a house to a single person I knew for the first 5 years I was in the business. And that was the way I did it, but it was a mistake. If I had called my family and friends and said, "Hey, I'm a real estate agent," but there was a thing for me, which was that doing a job as opposed to being in theater, for the first 5 or 6 years I was in the business, I still felt like I was a theater director who happened to be selling real estate to make money. And
Your mindset of what has
yeah, and actors, and I'm a director, I'm not an actor, but directors and actors and people in theater traditionally have looked down on what they call day jobs. There's an adage in theater, which is always keep your day job, because everybody knows that there's no consistency in it, particularly right now, by the way, after the NEA has been defunded, but that's a whole other story. But in any case, there was a shift that occurred in me in about the 6th year I was in the business where I went, I really want this. I'm actually changing people's lives one house at a time. When somebody buys a house in a neighborhood, they are becoming part of that neighborhood. They're becoming part of that community. And I'm a real politico. I'm in Berkeley, California. I'm going to be a real politico. I grew up with a father who taught at Cal and was indoctrinated into all kinds of political things as a little child. And so for me, selling real estate is a political act because when you sell a house in a community, the person votes in that community. They care about what goes on in that community. They want to make sure that their streets are safe. They want to make sure that their homes are safe. They want to make sure that things look nice. They want to make sure that their schools are good. They want to make sure that they are in a place where they feel like they are heard and seen and that other people care about their properties as much as they do. Selling houses for me is a political act in some ways. So I started realizing, I can have a huge effect on the community. And also, as I started to make more and more money, I realized I can give back. I work with a lot of different sorts of, like anybody can hit me up for a charity or something, and I'll always donate to it. My main thrust of the charitable giving that I do is the Berkeley Humane Society. And 3 years ago, I raised $450,000 for them. And
Wow.
that was in addition to my real estate work. I have helped them I had an office space, and since the pandemic, nobody really needs an office. And so I sublet it to them at a huge discount. And they have a thrift store now in my old office space, which is perfect for them. And that it's helping them out. I also pay for the food for all the animals in the shelter 5 months out of the year.
That's wonderful.
I also fund a scholarship at Berkeley Repertory Theater's school for young upcoming artists to learn how to act and direct and things like that. So once you get into a profession where you can make enough money that you can do those sorts of things, you can make a real change in your community by doing things like charitable giving, like I'm doing. So for realtors, people don't get that we really give back to our communities on a
That's what realtor means is giving back. It actually has nothing to do with real estate.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Realtor of the Year, I don't know if you guys do that. We're a smaller community, but we have the Realtor of the Year.
Oh,
And
cool.
every year get a little bit angry sometimes. So that person doesn't even sell any real estate. Doesn't matter. They're giving back, they're donating their time because it's a point system on being a good human, basically.
Yeah.
The day and participating in being a realtor, not necessarily selling homes.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
But that's the point. And
yeah.
when you're selling those big homes like you are, you're doing more, you're making more money, you're giving back more to your community.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
It feels really good. Now, I'm very blessed and fortunate. I don't have kids, which I think makes a huge difference in my life as a realtor. It allows me, I sell a house a week, and it allows me to do that because I don't have the responsibility of children. I'm always in awe of my realtor friends who have kids and are actually managing to be super successful, because I can see how much sacrifice and how much time it takes and what's involved. I also see the connections that they get through their kids' schools and through all of that stuff also for making money, which is something I have not really had. But it just, I wasn't cut out to be a parent. I never really wanted to. When I was a kid and I played with dolls, I made them my friends. I didn't make them my kids. So, and I do actually have a couple of quasi stepkids, but they were older when I met them. They were already, I like kids when they get to be about 12 or 13. That's when when you can really relate, have interesting conversations with them. I'm not good at the baby stuff. My assistants, Kai and Philip, are a married couple, and they have a child named Jacob. And Jacob is adorable, but I don't know how they deal with it. Every time if I call their house, he's screaming, and I'm like, oh my God, how do you deal?
I'm a mom of three, so I can relate to all of that. Mine's
He's
older now, so it's a lot different, whole different scenario at this point, but I can relate to all of it. I can imagine what you can do. I'm a very busy person, and I have been very successful from day one. That's just who I am. I will get it done. But if I didn't have the kids and all the extra stuff that I do, gotta be endless possibilities, right?
Yeah.
You definitely can roll your market for sure if you want to.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How are you doing for marketing? What are you doing now? Everything's probably changed in your 27 years from day one of how you
Oh Lord. Oh my God.
to now. What are you all doing?
Okay, so I am a dinosaur in that regard. Back when I started, cell phones were like the size of a shoe, and they looked like a walkie-talkie. There was no GPS. You had something called the Thomas Guide, which you sat on your lap while you were driving, and that was the maps of all the areas that you were going into. Okay.
Yep.
There was no MLS. There was a weekly listing that came out that got printed out and was delivered to your office. There was a very primitive version of an MLS, which people tried to put together, where everything was. Do you remember those kinds of dial-up internet where it would be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was definitely in my era too. I had a backbone my senior year of high school, and then
there you go.
definitely dial up. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Exactly. So I would be like sitting in Daly City. There was one quasi computer thing that all of us 30 people in the office had to use. You would wait your turn. You would stand by the fax machine when you got an offer in. Wait for a response. You would hide everything, because back then a lot of people were not as honest as they are now, to be perfectly honest with you. People would look at other people's stuff. And so it was very primitive. And while I went on the board of directors of the association. I was on the board of directors of the association for 15 years, my realtor association. I'm also on the board of the multiple listing service and on the committee of the multiple listing service now, because I like to give back to my community. One year I was realtor of the year, like you were talking about, and that's like the Miss Congeniality contest, which is nice. But what I have noticed is that it has gotten extraordinarily complicated to be a realtor. When I started in the business, the purchase contract in our area was 6 pages long. Now, with statutory disclosures that you have to provide upon writing an offer, it's 27 pages long where I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ours is only 10.
Yeah, it's different. I've noticed from my own podcast, I've been talking with people all over the country, and it's different everywhere. There are a lot of states where realtors don't follow the transaction all the way through to the end. An attorney takes over at a certain point. There are a lot of states where the escrow company is handling a lot more of the paperwork. In California, we write the contracts. We follow them all the way through to the end. The title company is only handling the title and escrow stuff, as opposed to anything to do with the disclosures and things like that. But even in Southern California, the title company takes on a way bigger part of the process. Northern California, we do everything. So it's like being a lawyer without having a law degree. In California, real estate is one of the professions. You have to be fingerprinted and registered and certified, and you have to take continuing education classes. And it's pretty much the same as far as that goes all across the country. But now you're expected to be like a full-on advertising company in your own right. You're expected to also know all of the forms that come out every second. You're liable for a lot of stuff. You can get into lawsuits if you don't know what you're talking about. You're also, when you're a realtor, you're essentially a therapist. You're also,
Absolutely.
you're meeting people at the worst times in their lives because it's the most stressful time. They've just gotten married. They've gotten divorced. They've had a kid. They've had kids go to college. They're downsizing. They've lost a job. They've gotten a job. These are all really serious, stressful moments in people's lives, and people are not at their best. So you're having to navigate through all of that when you're a realtor. And marketing now is tough because of the internet. Everything's instantaneous, it's immediate. You have to get reviews from everybody. You have to look good online. You have to do little videos on TikTok. You have to make sure that the message that you are putting out into the world is one that you would want people to see, because all information is available to everybody everywhere. I make no bones about my own politics on my personal part of Facebook, and I'm sure people can find it if they want, but where I am, that's okay because everybody else is too.
Yeah.
And it's likely to be a liberal Democrat. If I were in other states, I wouldn't be able to express myself as fully as I do around how I feel about what's going on. And I'd have to be mindful about that. And I keep my LinkedIn very professional. I keep my business page on Facebook very professional. And I spout off on my personal page, which is probably not the right thing to do, but I do it anyway.
You do what you want. But I was a managing broker with another girl at a real estate company for quite a few years. And we would have to educate our agents too, because we're more rural. So 9 times out of 10, those people are actually on your personal page too.
Yeah.
We know everybody. It's different up here. It's just,
Oh, yeah.
we know so many people. I can't get away with nothing. We would have to just say, hey, you know what? That's just probably not appropriate. If you want to get business, it's probably not appropriate. We all want to be authentic, and we want to have our clientele pick us because we are authentic. We can still be real people, but certain things we should probably just not.
Absolutely.
Everybody sees it, which for you, you're in a huge area. Like your personal page, people probably aren't looking at that, I would imagine.
It's an interesting thing. Again, I don't care. I'm old enough and I've been around for so long that I actually don't care. And I'm like the old rich hippie realtor. And if you're like me, you'll want to work with me. There are other realtors around. There's a wonderful woman named Bibi McCrae. She is as buttoned up as a human being can be. I'm going to guess she's to the right of Attila the Hun. I don't know. But her clientele is not my clientele. And that's another thing that I learned a long time ago is there's business for everyone. There's enough business to go around for literally everyone. If you work hard in this business, you will succeed. It's really everybody tells you calories in, calories out. Work hard in, benefit comes to you.
Oh, absolutely. And you're going to surround yourself with people that are like you anyway.
Yeah, which is talking about the inner circle.
Yeah.
I'm still friends with people that I was friends with when I was 16 years old. They're great human beings, all of them. And I was very blessed when I went to school. I went to college very young. I went to college when I was 15. And so I made really intense friendships at that point in time, the way you do when you're 15 years old. And I fortunately fell in with a really amazing group of people. And those people are all phenomenally successful in whatever field they're in. And they're also really wonderful people that I treasure to this day. My friend Taya, for example, she became a realtor because of me. She's up in Port Townsend, Washington. She's very successful. We don't talk that often anymore because she's not here anymore, but I saw a post on Facebook that her dog needed surgery, and I called her. And it was like all the years fell away. And I've literally known her for 42 years. There are theater people are very tight knit. Our community here is tight knit, small, and extremely profound. And a lot of brilliant people. I feel so blessed. I can't even tell you, to have been surrounded pretty much my whole life with really amazing people. And I feel really, it's so funny now. I have no problem selling somebody's house who I used to work with in theater or whatever. But back in the day, it was hard for me because it didn't fit with my idea of who I was. And that's your word authentic that you used. I think that is the biggest thing in relationship to marketing, is that if you are authentic, then you will be okay no matter what happens.
Oh, 100%. I know you have a podcast as well. And
Yeah.
I mean, I have multiple facets of social media, but I use one social media. Of course, I have my Facebook, which is my personal.
Yeah.
We all have that. But
Yeah.
TikTok, we all had to start TikTok. We didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we know what we're doing. And I'm like, what do I want to do with it? And I would say most of it is I like to dress up. I like to dress cute. I love to cook.
You do. You're
That's
very cute.
I like fashion. Love homes. I love homes. I love building. I love decorating, all that kind of stuff. But my number one is cooking. So I do a lot of cooking on there,
Oh, wow.
sharing recipes. And it is that weird thing, whereas we're trying to give advice to agents, and I'm like, just be you. And they come around because I went somewhere in town, which again, we're a small area. TikTok doesn't necessarily go out to here, right? It's everywhere. You don't know who's watching what.
Right.
It's weird how the algorithms
Anybody.
work, right?
Yeah.
And I had a lady who's my server, and she's, oh, I watch your TikToks all the time. And I felt so, ooh.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody watched those. But no, just being authentic, surrounding yourself with the right people. And if you are looking to be successful and you're not there yet, surround yourself with somebody better than you. Make sure they know more than you do so you can learn from them. And then
Yeah.
doing that throughout your life, surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded and that have the right goals. Like you have your different communities that you work with, and which is wonderful. And it makes you happy. And you can see that on your face
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you're saying. But if you play tennis, playing tennis with somebody who's better than you is inevitably going to make you better.
Yeah.
I play piano, and I started out on a janky piano that was, my dad was a concert pianist, by the way, and my mom was an opera singer. So I had a great benefit when I was a kid. I traveled all over the world. I did all kinds of stuff like that. And I have my father's piano from 1896. It's an upright. And it's in terrible condition because it was an old type of construction that they don't do anymore. And I have the choice of either just getting all of the guts of the piano removed and replaced, which is very expensive and also sad, or keeping it. It's a steel soundboard. Most of them have wooden soundboards now. Now, I bought myself a little piano that played better than my dad's piano. My dad's piano is just gorgeous as a case, but it's really, you can't play it. And then I got myself a better piano. I started taking lessons when I was 60. And by the time I was 65, I bought myself a Steinway Grand, which makes me sound so much better. It's like the quality of what it is you play with, whether it's people, pianos, anything, will really affect your ability to grow as a human being. And as you grow as a human being, you will get better at whatever it is you're doing. I went back to school this year. I'm getting my PhD finally. I got my BA when I was 19. I got my master's when I was like 30, and now I'm getting my PhD at 60. I'll probably have it by the time I'm 80 because I'm doing it one class at a time.
You're so inspirational. Like, for one, I would have never guessed your age, never in a million years.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have done so much and such a wealth of knowledge. It has been super fun talking to you.
Thank you.
Please tell us where we can find your podcast and where can we find you in general so people can reach out to you.
Very cool. My podcast is called Realizations, spelled with a capital R and a capital E for real estate. So Realizations, and you can find it on Hulu, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and Amazon. I also wrote a children's book, which is available on Amazon right now, called Yo-Yo in a Tree, which is all about my parrot Yo-Yo Ma getting out. And it
I would look that up.
I'm so excited. They just published it yesterday and it's available on Amazon. Yo-Yo in a Tree by Andrea Gordon. And then I also have a production company which is called Rainbow Zebra Productions. And you can find that at rainbowzebraproductions.org. We are a resident theater company of the Magic Theater in San Francisco. And I run a reading series through them. So if you're ever in San Francisco, come and see our readings. They're really amazing, actually. All new plays, the vast majority of them written by women over the age of 50.
I will definitely do that. That is actually one place I have not been yet, so it's definitely on my list.
Awesome. Thank you for having me today. You're just a sweetheart. I really like you, and I hope we communicate again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrea. Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of the Inner Circle podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation and took away some valuable insights to help you along your real estate journey. If you found today's episode helpful, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop me a comment below with your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have. And if you know someone who would benefit from this conversation, share this episode with them. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Inner Circle.